Tom, how much fun was it to go out and actually watch guys working at football? I can't really say they were practicing. They were kind of going through drills, but you were out there, rookie minicamp. What stood out to you? What kind of grabbed your attention?
Well, number one, it was just good to be outside, and it was good to see some of my media colleagues again. You know, I don't have to tell you, we've all been so cooped up now for more than a year that it was just good to be outside and watching, like you said, watching guys running around on the grass. So, you know, a few things stood out to me. I think first and foremost, Dave, and as I mentioned before with Woo, we'll call him Woo or call him JOK, whatever you want to call him. He's undersized. You know, he's not your typical linebacker. And it's interesting that he chose number 28 that kind of fits him. He looks more like a safety or a bigger cornerback than he does a linebacker. So that kind of stood out a little bit just in terms of his size. And he does move around really well. You know, they just had him going through basically individual drills, but dropping back into coverage. And you can see why, you know, the Browns were enamored with him because he's got all the skill set that you would want to see. Unfortunately, their other linebacker that they took, Tony Fields II, had suffered a foot injury a few weeks ago and was not able to work out outside. So you really didn't have anybody that you could kind of compare Woo to in size-wise. But that stood out to me a little bit. Also, Anthony Schwartz, the wide receiver from Auburn, who has world-class Olympic speed, and you can see bursts of that. And again, they weren't doing anything, you know, too specific. It was mostly, you know, short pass routes and things like that, but he's got that burst, and he's one of those guys, when you see speed like that, it's like when you watch, I always tell people, when you see Odell Beckham Jr. in person on a practice field, you understand what all the hype is about, because there's speed and then there's speed, and that looks like what Schwartz has. So James Hudson, the offensive tackle from Cincinnati, stood out only because he's gigantic. But there were only 18 guys out in the field. You know, they were spread out a little bit, so there wasn't a real good chance to see them do a whole lot. But again, it was good to be outside and get a chance to watch some football and do something other than Zoom calls every other day.
What about the way the coaching staff related to the players? You know, they made a special point of saying, hey, we could stop it and correct the drop and get things corrected immediately. And that's something Kevin Stefanski,
it was really the student teacher ratio was way out of control, because you probably had 3 or 4 coaches per player. It was really hands-on. So, and I thought it was interesting too to watch the way Kevin Stefanski and Joe Woods and you know, some of the other coordinators just kind of stood to the side and let some of the, you know, the real specificity go on in terms of like the linebackers coaching, working on particular drills. And there was little, you know, just kind of overseeing in terms of what Stefanski and Andrew Berry were doing. And so, again, there wasn't a whole lot to pick apart. We were only out there for basically about an hour. We're still not sure what the rest of the offseason is going to look like in terms of media access, or whether or not the veterans are going to be out there for OTAs or what have you. But it was interesting to watch the way they work. You know, I always, whenever I can, I try to take a friend or a family member out so they can see the way that, I think when fans see what really goes into, let's say, a tight ends coach breaking down a way a guy blocks, or a way a guy runs routes, or just the way he stuffs his foot into the ground and makes a cut. When you get really detailed like that, and you're able to see that in practice, you really gain appreciation for what these guys do on Sundays.